Hi, welcome back to the Downtown Den. I'm delighted to be joined in the latest of our Meet the Partner series by Phil Mayall, who is the Managing Director of Muse. Phil, thanks for coming into the Den.
No worries. Cheers, Frank.
Good to see you. And obviously, we've worked with you guys for a couple of years now. Absolutely love what you do. We'll talk a bit about your award a bit later on at the City Manchester Business Awards. But just tell people, in a sort of 5 minutes or so, what Muse does as a business.
Thank you. What do we do? Well, I think almost the clue's in the name, actually. Muse, when we became Muse, we've been around 40 years. We were owned by AMEC. And when AMEC went back to being an engineering business, or solely engineering business, we were sold and bought by Morgan Sindall, and obviously we couldn't continue to be called AMEC. So Muse was born, which is mixed use, Muse. Yeah. So rather than a love of the band or anything like that, it's mixed use, and that's what we do. I think if I was going to add another word to it, or words, you could either add places, which we use in our domain name, because we work in place and with people and what all that entails. Or you could call it partnerships, because everything we do is in partnership. But essentially, we work with partners in places to regenerate. And that can, back to the mixed use bit, that can come in many forms: housing, different tenures of housing, offices, employment, logistics, and further out, car parks, hotels, you name it. Within that sphere, we do it. Increasingly, we're working not just with local authorities, but with other civic institutions, particularly universities, and how they can influence the economic revival and growth of a place and playing their part. So that's quite an interesting place that we're in. So, but I think that, and generally speaking, we work at scale. Yeah. So we're not a developer that develops a plot, a single building, and then moves on somewhere else. We're in places 10, 15, 20 years. And that in itself can be interesting. You get to understand people. You get to form relationships and friendships, frankly, that endure over a long time. But I think the thing you never do is assume that you're from that place. And I think if you go to a place assuming that, it doesn't last that long, because you will never know. You will never know the kind of depth of feeling on a particular subject, and I've got the scars. Anyway, there we go. That's another story.
Yeah. I think that you've really summed up well what the business does. I think what really impresses me about you and the team that we've met through the work that Downtown does with Muse is that they can often be warm words, but you actually have that embedded into your DNA. It's in the culture of your business to genuinely placemake, genuinely work in partnership, and really want to make a difference to the communities you work with and leave a great legacy behind.
Yeah, thank you. We try. I think you could look at that in two ways. You could look at it in a kind of very cold business model way, and you could say, well, actually, if we play our part, if we give people what they want, and actually more importantly what they need, then you will be asked to do it again. So there's the cold business bit is that means repeat business. And the old adage, it's you're better off keeping a customer or get a customer to recommend you to somebody else and spend the money trying to find a new one. So you could look at it that cold way. I think very much sat alongside that though, genuinely it is so rewarding making a difference that and it might sound a bit fluffy, but it actually matters. And our team and the people who come and work with us and those that really want to work with us, that gets them up in the morning. And that thing, and it's always the small things. It's It's the little changes you see in a place because you work on it for so long. You know, the independents popping up, or actually just as rewarding. And Salford's often kind of used as an example of our work, and there are many others. It's actually the impact you've had on things indirectly alongside you. So the work we did on Chapel Street led directly to the growth of the local primary school, which was earmarked for closure, and the improvement of the social housing that was sat alongside. You know, quite often the term in regeneration, used in regeneration is gentrification. But that kind of implies, I don't like that word anyway, but it kind of implies that it's within your red line. Yeah. And actually, if you're lifting the whole kind of water level, so you're taking everybody with you, then you're having a positive impact. And it's never perfect. And there's short-term impacts, there's construction, and change is always a difficult thing. But I think, yes, going back to the original question, I think that's just as important to our team. And it's difficult work, it's complex work, so there needs to be something, not just salary, but there's rewarding, and that's the best bit. Yeah.
You said something interesting there, Phil. You said, we try and deliver what people want and need, well, actually what they need. What's the sort of difference there? There's a slight nuance there in terms of what a community might think they want, but actually you're looking at it from a more strategic view, looking at it long term. So how do those conversations develop?
Yeah, I think, the reason initially for the distinction is that actually development, if you look at property development in the kind of high level sense of without distinguishing what people, what sector you work in or whatever, a lot of developers work on people's wants. Somebody wants this, so I will deliver it. The trouble with that, again, from a business perspective, is wants change. Wants are directly linked to the economy and wealth and feeling and investment and all those things. All things are important, but if you work in the area of need, when things tighten, need stays, because that can't be switched off. And the current government is finding that even when resources are tight, you shrink back to need. And actually, when you then come back to the need point, you could then, the distinction being, you could deliver a load of open market for sale at prices that are well beyond the reach of not only local people but beyond that. And that's kind of a want, but it's somebody else's want. What the need would be is a mix of tenures. And neither do you jump to the other end and say, well, it's just, we need social housing, that's all we will do, because we're not then going to do that level up thing. And I mean level up in a different sense than the previous use of the phrase. But we can have an economic benefit, and that's where I think the distinction of need also comes in. So we can, with our experience, look at that and say, look, I know you want that, but you also need this. And you might want just social housing, but if we bring a kind of staircase for your economy, so not only do we give social, we give discount market rent, we give open market rent, we give shared ownership, we give open market for sale. That's a functioning economy, and people can move both up and down with that, because there's kind of this assumption that people's circumstances go in one direction. They don't, do they? You don't know what's around the corner. You don't know whether you're going to need to step back, and you might become more reliant on the public sector in terms of housing and whatever. So if we provide everything, we'll cover everyone's needs.
And just in terms of going into those conversations and consultations and the work that you have to do when you're going to do sort of big regeneration projects that Muse are involved in, what makes a good partnership, Phil?
So I think there are a number of kind of responses I can give to that. The first thing I'd like to do, if I could, is just pick up on the consultation point. Because I'm going to use it in a slightly different context, but it will bring me back to partnerships. So the consultation bit, I think, is the bit that our industry gets so drastically wrong. We seem to have gone to this kind of polar opposites of at one end it being a tick box in the sense of, look, we've got an A board in a church hall, come and have a look. Do you like it? No. Oh, well, it is what it is. And then you say, well, we've consulted. Yeah. And I'm putting this to the extremes. It's quite clearly not quite that drastic. And at the other, look, we'll arrange some real ale, some craft ale, well, an indie band and what have you. And at the other end, and that's speaking to a demographic that actually probably is what you're trying to achieve is get a list of people who want then to buy your apartments. And it just completely ignores this chunk of people in the middle who actually know how the place ticks. So the consultation, and it comes into partnership because it is a vital part of partnership, is going to those people without the plans and say, what makes this place tick? And I think the other bit of partnership is also understanding it's that kind of need and want part, but in a different way. We all focus, in regeneration, you tend to focus on what's failing. It's easy to go, there's no housing market or the infrastructure's poor and what have you. Rarely do, and this what comes out of a consultation, a proper consultation, rarely do people go, but what are your strengths? What can we build upon? We know it's actually pretty easy to see what's missing. You can walk down the street and see a vacant plot and what have you, and you'll know that needs remediating and that river floods and all that stuff. But what are the strengths? Is it the strength of the university? Yeah. Is it actually just the strength of community feeling? Yeah. Is it some of the physical stuff? Is it that you've got 6-lane highway running through the middle of your town that actually is giving you all the pollution, but actually what it's also doing is bringing people. So if we can calm it and allow them to get out of the cars and access the retail and what have you, then we can bring employment and get some of the benefits. So partnership is about looking at strengths, not just weaknesses. At a higher level, in terms of what makes a good partnership, honesty. Not an assumption that we bring everything to the table, which again, I think our industry can sometimes fall into the trap of. If you don't have a strong partner, it fails pretty quickly. Yeah. Strength of leadership in terms of, and our partnerships tend to be predominantly public sector. Strength of leadership doesn't necessarily need to be the same colour. It can, as in consistency of colour. Yeah. Well, obviously we work with across the spectrum in terms of political parties leading public sector organisations, but as in local authorities and combined authorities. But as long as there's a consensus. Yeah. Stockport's a good example, where quite regularly changes or goes to no overall control, but you're not waiting on May the 5th or whatever and going, what are we going to be dealing with? Because nobody can plan. When you work in 10, 15, 20 years, no one can plan around that. Yeah. So leadership, and I think then from our perspective, not being afraid of being held to account, because you genuinely don't know what you don't know to slip into the Rumfeld. It's we don't, and so we need to be held to account. But likewise, if we then have an audience where we can say yes, but this is the reason. Yeah. And it is then considered, that works really well. So there's a number of things in there. I kind of delved right in at the beginning and then up. But that mixed bag is I think you can pick elements out of that, and that's how a partnership works.
I just wonder from your partner's perspective whether the other advantage that Muse now brings is a commercial knowledge. And I'm thinking about, you've mentioned universities, public sector, we know the hammering they've taken over the past 14 years or so in terms of the cuts they've had to budgets. And, if you're a local authority leader, and I speak from experience, and even a chief executive sometimes, you're coming into that job basically focused on service delivery.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about where's the next pound coming from, where's the next shilling coming from. Likewise, universities, they're struggling. Some of them are struggling now financially. Do you sense that they are open to, let's have a commercial conversation, because these guys are from the private sector and perhaps look at things a little bit differently to what we do?
It's a mixed picture, but yes. And I say that without any hint of criticism of those who don't, because, when you deal with officers, chief execs and leaders every day, you see up close the challenges they have.
Right.
So I will never sit and judge if we're not top of their list in terms of a conversation, because I get it. But I think those that have understood that there's a direct correlation between, if I can put it in a business sense, their bottom line and what we do, those that get that, I think is where you make the most progress. I can always remember, he's now the MP for St Helens, but David Baines, when he was leader at St Helens, and one of the first conversations we had around the town centre, and we were saying, look, most of what we're doing here are effectively civic and underwater, so that you're going to have to own these. And that goes back to the honesty point, being very clear about that at the beginning, not dropping it in later on, very clear. And if that's not acceptable, fine. That's how it is. But I remember having that conversation with him, and it was kind of a little bit like, what's he going to, and he's going to say, and his response was, it goes to my bottom line. I was like, he says, well, if I don't address the town centre, if I don't address create aspiration, if I don't create opportunity, if I don't remove some of the or some of the fabric that creates antisocial and promotes antisocial behaviour, my bottom line is getting worse. And it's that was the first time, and I've worked with a lot of leaders, but that was the first time I heard somebody put it in that context. And it took the cogs a while to wear, and I was thinking, I get it. And it was, I have no choice. I'll do the right thing, and that wasn't so off you pop and let me know you get on, an active participant. So I think those that understand that, I think those that will trust you to work over a long period of time, because some of the decisions early on are financially difficult for the local authority because there's no other way out of it. But trusting, one, that you can bring other funding streams to the party that actually you can't even identify yet. That's the world we've been in, isn't it, for the last 5 or 10 years of initiatives being announced, and you've got 2 months to put a bid in and what have you. Those that are prepared to work with you on designing things and having things ready for the funding streams to come when they get announced.
Yes.
And those that are prepared to go, look, I know that we're making a decision now, but I trust that these guys won't disappear off and make a quick buck on this one. It's about going, right, and that has moved things on. And I think, again, I could pick an example. I've already mentioned them in different contexts. Stockport done that so well. So around Stockport Exchange scheme, as you come out of the train station, it was utterly unviable at the start. And it was Eamon and then Caroline. We need to, in terms of chief executives, we need to step up to the plate. But gradually we lifted the office rents. So gradually we were moving to viability, and gradually risk and reward get shared. And they could also then see, back to bottom line, the bigger picture of, well, this wasn't functioning before. I've now got business rates coming in here. I've got employment through the Music Magpies and the BASFs and what have you, who weren't in Stockport. Music Magpie came out of Stockport, but of that scale. So yes, those that are prepared to look beyond the immediate, who can, and are prepared to do, and build trust and have an open mind when you explain, look, it's going to be difficult to do this, but over time we can get there. That's where it tends to work best. But as I say, I won't criticise anybody who's who's in a world of, look, I've got to deal with this now.
Yeah, because sometimes they just have to.
They have to, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think you'd agree with me. Leadership is part and parcel of all of what we've spoken about in a sense, isn't it? If you've got that strong and consistent leadership and you know what the other partner wants, that helps. And I recently presented you, I was delighted to present you with the Chief Executives Award, the City of Manchester Business Award. And that was because of the leadership that you show to Muse. And also the leadership role that you play, certainly in this region, probably beyond, because Muse, of course, is a national regeneration placemaking organisation. The reason that it was a easy decision for me to make was, I said this on the night, when we met, you spoke about everything other than what Muse wanted. It was, the region needs this, regeneration projects, placemaking, all the stuff that you've repeated today with us. And I think that then just ripples down to the rest of the organisation. It starts at the top, and you've got that attitude and that determination to make a difference in the way that you've spoken about today. And I guess that's what you're looking for with your partners as well, isn't it? To have that same ambition, that same drive, and that same interest of let's make a difference.
I think that was very kind, thank you, and absolutely delighted. And as I said on the night, apart from obviously meeting your good self again, Frank, as we do, meeting Lucy Meacock was the highlight. That was the highlight. That was it. First thing I said when I got home. Good. Anyway, I digress. I think two thoughts on that. I think you used the term DNA earlier. That's because it's been in the business long before I was in that leadership role. So Matt Crompton, particularly before me, that kind of honesty and that what can we do? What can we do? And again, probably born to a degree out of a cold business reality of, and if we can give people what they need and what they'd like and what they want and some aspiration, then they'll come back to us and they'll talk about us. I think that's the first thing I'd say. I think you're right. Leadership does come from the top. I think that's pretty. We know that, don't we? But I think sometimes what we forget is the level of leadership we have in the organisation itself. So we have some very empowered people in our business. So in the Northwest, obviously Phil Mayall, who you know well as well, is our regional managing director for the Northwest, and he is utterly empowered to do the right thing. Do the right thing for this region. Do this right thing for the people we work with. We don't always get it right. So I could have I could go home and get 20 emails going, but you did this. I know. It's what you do next. It's important. And so I think it's not just there. You need it to filter through. But you're right. It starts there. And I think that's what we look for in a partner. Is the clarity, is there honesty, and are they prepared to tell you no as much as yes? Because that's work. That's when you get things done, isn't it? Yeah. Brilliant.
Phil, thanks for coming into the den. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I know we'll see each other again very soon.
We will. Yeah,
Cheers,
definitely.
mate.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.